Hi, hello. Thank you for joining us for our very first BAEP Talk session. This is a 30-minute session where we're going to be having conversations with persons who have been diagnosed with or support those that have been diagnosed with chronic menstrual health disorders or chronic pain disorders, and trying to find out ways in which they manage, ways in which they treat these conditions, and ways in which they, go through their everyday lives while, having these conditions to the best of their ability. And our very first guest is our co-founder, Dawn Williams. But we're going to be interviewing her from her entrepreneurial hat as opposed to her co-founder hat. I'm sure that there's going to be some back and forth as it pertains to, her life as an entrepreneur, as well as her life as an advocate. But we really wanted to have this interview with her as an advocate for entrepreneurship as well. So welcome, Dawn.
Thank you.
So a little bit about Dawn before we get into the question and answer segment. So Dawn is a chartered accountant by profession. She has over 9 years experience, or is it 10 now?
A bit more, but go ahead.
In external and internal auditing, accounting, and management of accounts departments. She's a certified fellow of the ACCA, or the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, and CIA, Certified Internal Auditor, and is an active member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados. She is very passionate about empowering Barbadian businesses to thrive and excel, and is dedicated to whatever she can do to pass on her knowledge, experience, and advice to advance the realm of Barbadian business practice from its current existence to being exceptional. So thank you again, Dawn. And we want to start by asking you, we know that you were an entrepreneur all the time. So we want to talk to you about your journey from when you were an employee into what really was the springboard for you to become an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I was an employee at 3 different places before I branched off into entrepreneurship. And I gained a wide world of experience at those 3 places. I'm very grateful for all of the experiences that I had there. What I did notice though is that as it relates to my struggle with endometriosis, or at the time, at some point in time in there, I didn't know that I had endometriosis, but it was still a struggle with the pain and stuff like that. I realized that, I was taking a lot of time off because of the pain and the other symptoms that go along with it. And I kind of developed a whole guilt trip in and of myself. So I was more or less feeling guilty when I would be home for extended periods of time, which then would cause a cycle where when I come back out, then I would feel the need to put in 150% and then stress myself out and then bring on another flare, and then the cycle continues and continues. So I knew that I didn't always want to be in that position. I always wanted to open a business. I just didn't know what business. I never really gave it as much thought as I probably should have at that time, but I always had a lot of ideas. I still do have a lot of ideas. So I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. Just that fear was a factor, as it probably is with a lot of budding entrepreneurs. And so, but at one point in time, I just decided enough is enough. And so I left that job that I was at, and I started entrepreneurship in 2016, in January 2016, with zero plan, zero experience. I wasn't doing anything on the side. anything like that. I just decided, yeah, I want to do this, and somehow I can figure it out. And here I am still in business like 4 years later.
Congrats. So your business is Resilient Accounting Services. So
Yes.
take us through the process of, from developing, like even the name, because I know that name is of significance to you. So
Yeah.
from name up until this point today, like that journey.
Okay. So even though I had no plan, I am a planner by definition, and so I would have identified some steps that I knew I needed to do in order to develop the business, and that was also based on the roles that I held before. Because being an auditor, being a financial controller, being an internal auditor, like you saw how business worked, you saw things that you knew you didn't want to do, and then you saw things you know that, yeah, they work, and you know that you want to kind of duplicate that into your own business. For me, the name Resilient Accounting Services, so first of all, it was a derivation from the word resilience. And so like I wanted something that would more or less embody me, Dawn Williams, into my business. So that was the word really that was bouncing around in my head when I first started thinking about names. But really and truly, the traditional names for chartered accountants is some kind of variant of your own name. And so like when I went in to register the name, I actually had like all these different options. But really and truly, Resilia was the one that was top in my mind. And so once that was accepted, then I was like, okay, cool. There was only really maybe a handful of other accounting or business consultation businesses at the time that their name was not a variant of their actual name. So yeah, so that's basically, I just wanted to be a little different, I guess. And so that's why I chose Resilient Accounting Services.
Okay.
In terms of growing the business to today, that took a lot of sweat, blood, and tears. So as I said, when I started out, I did not have like any clients. I didn't have much at all. So I basically started to build from the ground up. What I decided to do, which I still employ to this day, is that I decided to adopt a advertising by education approach. And so like I built my social media in a way that it gives free advice, free tips on a daily basis to anybody really that can use the advice, because it is not only for businesses, sometimes it's personal advice as well, like personal financial advice. And so as a result of that, and my brilliant friends base that shared my stuff, so as a result of that, that's how I built my network. And so like as clients came on like one by one, then they would also refer me to other clients, and that's how the business grew. To the point now where I was able, in that was 2018, to hire my first employee. And yeah, so right now we have one employee that works with me, and between the two of us, like we divide and conquer.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. So what are some of the lessons you've learned? So you said that you went from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. The fact that you had this cycle of pain and missing work, that was one of the driving forces. So the pain hasn't necessarily stopped. You still have endometriosis.
Right.
And so you still have chronic pain. So what have you learned on your path being able to sustain your business as well as managing chronic pain, and some of the lessons learned or some of the tips that you could possibly, share with others who might be considering, becoming an entrepreneur, or, entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but in a job, managing chronic pain. What are some of the things you think you should share with persons?
Okay, so the first thing that I would that I have learned and I'm still learning is to listen to my body. So obviously pain is a sign that something is not right, and so it's also a sign that maybe your body needs to rest a little bit. So sometimes we feel a little guilty of resting. You think, you know, you're not being productive, you have all these things to do, etc., etc., but at the end of the day, you only have one body. So, and I mean, if you don't take care of that, then you won't still be able to do the stuff that you want to do. That is something that, I mean, I don't have it down to science yet, but I'm learning more and more to listen more to my body. The other thing that was, I guess, one of the hardest things for me is because I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Kind of.
so so I had to learn to delegate. That was a big thing for me. And so because of, I mean, I have one employee, but my team far extends one person. So just inviting other people into my circle to get the help that I need to keep the business afloat. Different aspects that I am not gifted in. Like, for example, you do the social media. So like those areas for sure that I need help in, I am learning to be able to ask for assistance in. So that those are like two of the main lessons that I have learned. In terms of also, well, a few more tips and stuff that I have learned along the way. I won't go into all of them, but like scheduling and planning like meals and that kind of stuff like that. So like those kind of things help in the long run in terms of managing the chronic illness, and staying on top of work and deadlines and that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, I know with you and the scheduling, I try to emulate you with that. I'm not as good as you with it. I'm getting better and meal planning. For me, it's difficult, but it has gotten better. And I do credit you with you know, being a good role model in like setting like planning and at least trying to, you know, complete the things on your to-do list. I'm a procrastinator by nature. Simply because, you know, you procrastinate and you get the things done, but I know that that's also not good for your health because you put your body under a lot of stress when you do that. And so well, I've started to also plan in advance, and I feel better knowing that, you know, that I've got a task done way in advance, and I don't have to stress about rushing it to get it done on on the deadline. So I credit you with helping me with that in my life. No problem. Thank you. And I just recognized it didn't hit me like earlier, but you started Resilia around the same time we started BAEP.
Yeah.
Like, same year. So how did that, like, I knew it happened, but now that I think back about it, I'm like, that was a lot on your plate. I apologize.
No. Actually, I was quite glad then because I know we had talked about it before
Before, yes.
then. And
2014.
it was, for sure. And then it was, it actually worked out best because I was self-employed at the time. So the timing actually worked out pretty good because I had way better control over my time. And I mean, all right, so let me get the misconception out there now that self-employed people just got all the time in the world. That's not the truth.
On my list, like entrepreneurship versus being self-employed. Is that like a misnomer, or, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's so not the truth, but at least you have more control over the time. And so like that's why the timing at that point was the best timing, because at that time, like, that was further down in the year. So I kind of had Resilia already going. So that was not like a big burden on my head. So then, you know, you kind of worked out a routine already with that. So then you kind of knew how you could fit in other stuff. And trust me, like, there's a whole ton of other stuff that has, that has added since then.
I was going to say, like, I've taken you on, you might not necessarily know it, but as sort of a mentor, and I know that you actually do mentorship programs with UE and maybe some other entities as well. So I'm just like, how do you fit it all in while,
Girl,
you know?
sometimes I don't know. I really don't know. Sometimes I look back at like, okay, so I keep a track of the tasks that I do, but
Mhm.
most of them, and then I look back at my to-do list, like the ones that I checked on, I'm like, how did I get all that done? I don't know.
Maybe it's because
But
you're resilient, right? Resilient.
uh, but yeah, so I don't know. I honestly don't know. I really can't tell you, but I guess it comes down to planning too, planning out your time, having a better control over your time,
Mhm.
um, and also doing more, what's the word, pointed stuff. So like, no, I mean, when you were employed, you didn't really have much control over the tasks that you were assigned because you had a boss and that kind of stuff like that. But now you can say no to the things that you know are not in your path or in your alignment or your purpose or whatever.
Mhm.
So like I find that, and also to weirdly enough, the things that you are passionate about will actually come up more. They will present themselves more to you when you are actually aligned
Mhm.
with your purpose.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of like a natural filter, I guess,
Okay.
as to what you should be doing or what you are born to do.
Mhm.
I have found that, at least for me.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so not everyone was made for entrepreneurship. I know that. I personally, I can advocate, I can be a consultant of sorts, but I know that I'm not an entrepreneur per se. But what do you think would be important for the employee-employer relationship as it pertains to persons with chronic illness or chronic pain, and how can that relationship, I mean, either based on your previous experience or based on what has come out of that experience, what do you think are some key things that should be um, either brought up, mentioned, or factored into that relationship?
Okay, so communication is key.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't mean like spilling the beans on like your whole medical history,
Mhm.
cause they don't need to know that. But but at least being a little open with the fact that if you are not feeling well, or if you are going through pain, or you
Mhm.
have something coming up, some kind of medical procedure or something like that, it helps to be open with the employer. It
Mhm.
also helps if the employer in turn is sympathetic or empathetic, I should say,
Right, yeah.
to your cause. Yeah, so communication is key. Like for me, when I was employed and I was going on the hundreds of job interviews and what's not, I
Mhm.
actually used to mention it there, like at the job interview.
Mhm.
So I used to mention, like I suffer with a chronic illness, and it may result in me being away from work X amount of days a month, etc., etc. But I mean, I also did put the disclaimer, that I am willing to work remotely in cases like that, where like where you can't be there physically, etc.
Mhm.
Obviously, I know that every job is not suited to working remotely,
Mhm.
um, but at the same time too, it helps not to have like surprises after you start to work,
Mhm.
both from your perspective as well as from the employer's perspective. So I find that communication is key. I also find now that nowadays, employers are becoming more empathetic.
Yay.
They haven't totally gotten there yet. Well, not 100%, but they are becoming more empathetic
Mhm.
because of the wider education around these kind of issues.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the more you engage with them, the earlier that you engage with them as well, then I find that also that will help.
Okay.
Um,
Which, yeah, that should
yeah,
make that sounds logical.
yeah, it
Yeah.
should help.
It should.
Like some of the other things, I guess, that employers can do, depending on the employment setting, because there are a lot of physical jobs. There are a lot of jobs where persons are standing a lot. There are like stockpiling, and those kind of stuff like that, or where you are like constantly on the go.
On
So
your
like
feet, yeah.
yeah, pharmacists and hairdressers and those kind of persons.
Mm-hmm.
So like I find too that maybe there could be some kind of further discussion into making the working environment a bit more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
for those persons. Yes, I understand that there will be, or there may be some kind of financial outlay involved. But again, it helps to have that discussion if you value your staff enough. I think that the effort at least should be made, even if the employee decides to meet you halfway and like help finance whatever it is that will make them comfortable, whether it is a backrest on your chair, or a place where they can, like a couch, a comfortable couch, or something that they can sit down like during the day and just, relax a bit, or I don't know, something else that would make their life, their daily life a lot easier.
Right.
And then you may find that the persons then may be more willing to come to work even on the days that they are in pain, because they know that those facilities are available.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not just talking about like, even though our focus for BAP is menstrual health conditions and disorders, we're talking about any type of chronic pain that any person from any sex or gender might be experiencing. Because, for instance, there's fibromyalgia that is not necessarily associated with just one type of person or one gender. Everyone can anyone can be diagnosed with that, and so it really helps to have a conversation about, the fact that these things do exist. These are these invisible, illnesses, these invisible chronic pain illnesses that, we look fine on the outside, but inside of our body, it's a whole nother story. And it doesn't mean that we want to shirk from our responsibilities, and not be productive. And it's not a productivity contest either. At the same time, when we're at work, we want to do our best within, the I don't want to say restrictions, but within the
environment, I guess, that you're
exactly,
given.
exactly.
Yeah.
We want to do our best. We want to perform, but we also want it to be known that we didn't cause these things to happen to ourselves.
Exactly.
And so I think that's why that dialogue is important. These conditions do exist. They can impact like your everyday life, but it doesn't negate the fact that you're human and your human rights should be, respected. You want to be able to provide for yourself, provide for your family if you have one, and you just want that opportunity to do so. Yeah.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Agree
So
100%.
thank you. So on that note, then we're talking about educating employers. If you're an adult and you're at work and you have these conditions and you want to have that open, possibly conversation with your employer, but I'm asking your opinion now. At what age do you think, specifically for menstrual health conditions, at what age do you think persons, both girls and boys, should be aware of these conditions, so that as they go into and grow into adulthood, it doesn't come as a surprise as it did for yourself and for me?
Yeah. I think as early as menstrual age begins, then that should be where the education starts, particularly with the girls. The boys maybe could wait like maybe a few years, but I mean, they can wait. The girls can handle the information, the boys can handle it too. So, as early as possible, or as close as possible to the menstrual age, because things are going to change in their body. It makes sense at that point, I think, to more or less educate them on what is happening, what is supposed to happen in terms of discomfort, versus pain, and therefore give them the tools or the knowledge to know when something does not feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think.
Because these young women and young men, they're going to grow up and become the employers or the employees or the entrepreneurs. And so it would be helpful if they have this information, you know, in their back pocket so that they can modify their lifestyle if it is needed to manage and
Correct.
treat their conditions while still being as productive as they can be in society. So yeah, I do believe that early education is critical as it pertains to menstrual health disorders, and that's why we at BAEP, we start educating as early as 12, 11,
Yeah.
and even earlier, you know, if you know the audience allows for it.
Yeah.
But we do think that early education is critical in order to better prepare yourself if this is going to be like endometriosis or PCOS or adenomyosis or any of those conditions, if that is going to be something that occurs within you know, your life.
Yeah.
um
Correct.
so yeah. So is there anything that you think the general public should know about entrepreneurship? If there was one takeaway you would want persons in Barbados to know about being an entrepreneur, and disclaimer, all entrepreneurs don't look the same because you know
Yeah.
their business model is not going to be the same, the service or product they produce, you know, is not going to be the same. But generally, if there is one thing we should know as consumers for entrepreneurs, what would that be?
One thing, that's
Or
interesting.
if several things, if you want to give several things.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is again that entrepreneurship is not easy. It is not a cop out, so it's not like something that you should um, do if you are having a hard time at work. Because it's not easy. Actually, you work maybe like 3 or 4 times harder if you want to be successful, if you're an entrepreneur than versus when you are an employee. Um, because you have to do everything in the business, and if you are not making money, then you're not really surviving. So I think that's the one thing that I would say in terms of entrepreneurship. So prepare for a significant time outlay, significant time investment, significant money investment as well.
You got to spend
Um,
money to make money.
exactly. A lot of people don't realize that, but yeah. You, like, but also too, like, a lot of passion, because if you don't have passion, then it kind of dies after a while, because like I said, you're doing everything. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the finance, you are actually providing the service. You're basically doing everything that a team of persons generally would do in a business setting. And burnout is very possible. Actually, I think every entrepreneur has experienced burnout at some
At some
point in
point in
time.
time.
Yeah. So yeah, but the passion is really what will keep you going. So if your passion is like me, I like helping people generally. So like, and then because I kind of use the knowledge that I have to help people. So that's why I would go into like the accounting from a small business perspective and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so if you have the passion to see other people thrive and excel and what's not, then I think that will serve you well in terms of going forward.
Passion and determination.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think, you know, you've given us a lot to digest and think about. So thank you so much, Dawn, for, you know, providing your time and your expertise to talk about being an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur, you know, with a chronic illness, but being so determined, you know, in fulfilling your purpose and, you know, being on your path to success. We at the BAEP love you and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for providing your services to us as well. And advocating for us and for what we do. Yeah, so thank you. I will put your information in the your contact information in the text below when we post the video, so that if people want to learn more about Rosalia Accounting Services and maybe learn more about how they could become an entrepreneur, if they want to learn that from you, they can contact you and do so. So thank you so much again. We wish you a wonderful wonderful rest of the day, wonderful rest of the week. Stay inside, wash your hands, social distance at this point in time, and we will see you when we get out from under this. So thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye. Bye.